Hello everyone, welcome to The Dig. I'm Ryan McEachern, and on this episode we're going to be talking about robotics and automation. We've heard lots about it, and yet we still see a slow adoption to this technology to improve productivity and safety. And no better person to talk to about it is Ryan Catton from Ionic Mechatronics. This business development manager is a thought leader in this space, and so you'll want to stick around and hear about what he has to say. But before we get into that, I want to throw it over to Brian Boland, our producer, so he can talk to you about the 6 and 60.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Here we go. Saudi Arabia has secured $6 billion US in funding to build a steel plate mill complex and an electric vehicle battery metals plant. De Beers SA is implementing its tracker blockchain platform at scale to provide transparency for the origin of its diamonds across the value chain. The U.S. Energy Department will provide $3.16 billion in grants to boost the country's supply chains for batteries used in electric vehicles and energy storage systems. Glencore PLC will subscribe for $200 million US of convertible debt in the New York Stock Exchange listed Lee Clyde Holdings Corp. MSTA Canada's annual forum is back. Join us in person on June 10th at the Shangri-La Hotel in Toronto. For more information, go to mstacanada.ca/events/annual forum. And finally, Ryan, MSTA Canada will be at PDAC 2022 from June 13th to the 15th. For more information, please go to mstacanada/PDAC B2B. And that is your 6 and 60. And now here's host Ryan McEachern in conversation with Ryan Catton from Ionic Mechatronics.
Hey Ryan, it's a real pleasure to have you on The Dig this time.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here.
Well, and I'm really excited to have you on here because this is a topic which we'll get to here that it's been on my mind for a long time. And what better person than have you from Ionic Mechatronics to talk about, and that is automation and robotics. So we've heard a lot. There's a lot of literature out there talking about how you can benefit from it and how this is going to help us in terms of safety and productivity. Yet there seems to be this hesitancy there. But before we really kind of dig into that part, why don't you just explain to the audience that may not know who Ionic is, give them a little kind of broad brush overview of what you do there.
Sure, no problem. So Ionic is one of 7 companies under the Ionic Engineering Limited Group. We are based in Sudbury, Ontario, so we are right in the middle of the nickel belt up here. We are a custom automation integrator, custom machine builder, and our major focus is on heavy industries. So metal processing, mining, forestry, steel, and manufacturing, all in that heavy industry segment. We do have an OEM line on our own, and what we focus on there is a lot of things around like the anode and cathode processing in tank houses. So, stripping machines, anode preparation machines, whether that's in copper, nickel, cobalt, a big focus in those ones in the tank houses. Along with that, we also have bulk bagging systems, as well as drumming systems for concentrates of different metals, as well as uranium powders, and some solids such as, cobalt rounds, nickel rounds, and things along those lines. On top of the OEM stuff, we also focus quite a bit on custom, one of sometimes machine development. We also have PLC and HMI upgrades, programming, that sort of thing for both PLCs and HMIs on-site services. And we also offer safety upgrades with risk assessments and PSRs for a lot of the equipment. So we do have CMSE certified engineers within Ionic's breadth of talent.
Okay, so that's a lot, and there's a lot of acronyms in there as well. But let's kind of, like I said, let's dig into kind of that whole aspect about everybody seems to go and nod their heads saying, robotics are, that makes sense. We can really streamline certain repetitive processes, make things safer, keep employees out of line of sight for hazards. But there does seem to be a hesitancy and are you seeing that? And if so, what seem to be the main kind of hesitancies that you're seeing?
Yeah, we do see some hesitancy. I think a lot of customers, right, they understand process automation, but not as much industrial automation. And whether we talk about autonomous, robotics and that side of it. So some of the hesitancy that we see though is a lot of times it's a big step change, right? It's a fear of the unknown. There's a lot of things in there that are, potentially the customer doesn't really understand, what's involved, or what actually goes into, an automated line or something along those lines. A lot of that, will stem back to maybe that customer not really having good KPIs, not having good data, so they don't know where the gains are. And if you don't know where the gains are, then they don't know what the benefit is, right? So there's that, and so we get a lot of that hesitancy. Is there a sticker price? Sometimes yes, and sometimes it goes a little bit of both ways, right? Some people will look at a concept and be a robot. That's millions of dollars, and then you start to walk through them a little bit, right? So there's that right away, that understanding of what they think, some of this automation costs. The other part about that is the second you say robotics, some people think that they need all this specialized personnel now, right? Or maintenance people, that they're just like, where am I going to get these people? I'm looking to streamline more, not bring in more talent. But when you start to walk through it, and when you start to actually, go through how to deal with this, you start to see some of them start to understand a little bit more and understand, the overall effectiveness of it. So there's a lot of solutions that you can work with the customers on, and a lot of them is teaching it how to scale the automation, right? So you don't need potentially, $4 million worth of automation right off the bat. Why don't we break that into 3 or 4 years? Why don't we do modular type style designs and builds, and really get into that focus of how we can sequentially put stuff into the plant. Try to teach customers, like we said, without the KPIs and a lot of where the gains are. Walk through with them about where are the bottlenecks. Where is the biggest bang for that buck? Like, is it in trying to look at potentially where you are having issues getting labor? Is it where there's a lot of MSD injuries? And we can walk through a lot of that, because those are really the big functions, right? If we look at why people have been trying to adopt the automation, a lot of times it's not for purely just production. Going like, I had 300 parts, I want 500 parts now. We're in Northern Ontario. It's very hard to find labor. It's very transient. And COVID has a big play now. And what we're seeing in the last 2 years, if we want to get very specific, it's that, tomorrow you may not have 3 employees that you had today. And I think people are really starting to realize what they want is, consistent production, not increased, but just consistent, that they can, really day to day make sure that plant is reliable.
Well, and sorry, if I can bring in on that part too, is, what you mentioned was, there's a need because there's not enough employment out there to actually just kind of like say keep a steady state, let alone a productivity improvement. But aren't some companies, like, the employees are afraid of losing jobs? There's kind of this almost ironic hesitancy or fear that, wow, this robot or automation's coming in, like, we're going to be out of work. Like, is that not happening?
There's definitely that as well. But a lot of it is what you're really doing is repurposing that talent, right? Because with the lack of the personnel, you're putting these people on the value added work now. Like I said, you're removing the safety there. You're increasing the safety. You're removing the safety hazards. So instead of having your people on site lifting 50 pounds, you're putting them on value added work where potentially could be really then now looking at production increases, or that, whereas you have that more flexibility with the automated lines. So it's always the way that we always look at that, to say, we understand that, yes, that maybe needed 3 people before and only 1 is there now, but those other 2 people are just being repurposed because they're already short staffed, and it allows them to really, like I said, put them at a lot of those value added roles, rather than some of these roles where they are more at risk of injury, or more at risk of being in potentially an environmentally unsafe area.
Right. So,
and that's really the focus.
Right. And what happened? So what's kind of the opinion when, after you've kind of like post implementation, the robotics or the automation's in play, what was the workforce kind of reaction to it? Say if there's a downtime on it or something, what are you getting from there?
Yeah, so it's pretty neat, some of the trends that we have going on that way. So I'll go back like just one quick sector, right? So
Sure.
like when we're talking about the hesitancy, if I lump say customers into about 3 different categories, the hesitancy part is on a lot of the ones who have never really been involved in the automation. So you got to kind of, it's more of like that walking through, like I said, that's, you want to take smaller bites perhaps. Let's start on something small and get you used to it. Because exactly like you said that next stage, or group number 2 kind of are these places that have automation. And it takes them a little while. Like we've got a lot of customers where you potentially could be 4, 6, 8 months before there's a full buy-in. Because it is a change. But what we're finding now is that we're actually getting a lot of customers that are flipping and really being like, their operators are now disappointed when the line's not running. So we have a lot of urgent, like, we have an Ethernet cable down. It's a lot of it is, guys, we got to get this back up. Like our guys are loving this equipment now, right? Because they've noticed that. They're like, when we walk into some places, they're like, I'm so happy I don't have to pick up all of those cathodes anymore. I don't have to do this task anymore. And like you said, they're back to value-added jobs where they're doing stuff that they're a little bit more engaged in. So, like I said, when you had those ones that are hesitant, but then you have them on the other side, and these customers are also these same people, and these operators are now talking about, so do you think we could add this part to this line? Do you think we can add this? And they're almost helping you do that sales and business development on how we can get to that next stage and what that next level is.
Right.
Because they're like, what? So, right, I've got to come in, I got to pick up this bundle, and then I got to bring it to the warehouse. And then can I do all that here? And you're starting to say like, well, yeah, like, so, and that goes back to them now starting to understand the possibilities. Them starting to understand how that works in their system. Them understanding how it can change logistics, how it can change how they operate their plants. So it's a really neat kind of dynamic to see the ones that are, ever evolving in that automation side and really invested in it.
It kind of sounds like there's a bit of a, this learning curve it's really at the beginning, because too, you mentioned also very similar to say ERP implementations is it really puts the test to knowing your processes. And it's amazing the journey that goes through that, going, well, we could optimize just by getting our processes understood better. And then you get it automated. And then all of a sudden people start to learn and experience, and that experience curve takes off. And now they're going, well, we could do it here, and we could do it. So it's.
And even on some of those same lines, you talk to some of the operators in that, and they're like, oh, I wish you could do this. Can you change that? Can you change that? And now they're like increasing the scope on that same line that we know 6 months ago, they were like, I'm not sure about this,
Yeah, so it's just try this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And they're like, oh, I wish it did this. I wish it did this. Why can't it do that? We should make it do that. Like, and it's fun to see that now that step change every, say every couple months when you go visit a customer to see what's going on. And now you see the buy-in and you see how it's going, because it's definitely very encouraging that it's going the right way. And people are realizing that the automation is actually for good and not, like you said before, for job reduction.
So what do you do with here's your chance. Like, what would you say to a company that's saying, I've heard about automation, I know about robotics, I read about it, I've been places where I've seen it and stuff like that. It's like, but I don't really see a fit for it here, but I don't know where I would start type thing. Like, what would you say to a company like that?
Yeah, and we get called in quite a bit for that stuff, right? So, we'll get called in and be like, you know what, right, I'm not sure what to do, And so it's simple. Like, we spend 2 days with them, and we'll just say, walk me through your processes. Let's go through step by step of how we do it. And then we ask the questions. Is that how you normally do this? Is this always, here? And they start to open up, and they tell you like the truth on what's what. And then you just start to talk about potentially opportunities and what you can do. And it goes back to where, right away it's that hesitancy, but we have to make sure that they know, like, we could slowly integrate something. Why don't we do that? Let's get you comfortable with this. Or, we can maybe look at this opportunity here. And, why don't we, start looking at removing that? Because really by helping them with the bottlenecks, like I said, helping them where the gains are, they just start to see it differently. And it's an added benefit. So the more we try to incorporate the customer as much as possible, even in the designs, right? Like, you tell me, it's your machine in the end. Right. We're building it for you. So, the more input we have from you, I'll say, the more buy-in we have, but the more that you're kind of you're enthusiastic about what's coming in, right? You know that there's a buy-in there. So it's really just getting them involved, And then
Right.
really teaching them, and not having a fear to leave somewhere and say like, I don't see really much benefit right now. Like if I'm not going to do something that's advantageous to, reducing MSDs or to increasing your production, or there's no real return, I can't give you a quote for something that we don't really believe in, right? Like we want to also believe on our side that there's a reason for that automation. And it really helps them to try to potentially even change how they're doing something, or look at maybe doing something differently where they would have an opportunity to potentially add that automation in the future.
Right. And it seems to be kind of tied to what I'm hearing as well as, people should know the processes. If not, revisit them on a regular basis, because they're always changing. What you might have on paper is probably not how they're doing it on the floor or wherever. And know that, like how the KPIs are, what are you measuring? And, do you have a clear understanding of the time of each task? Because I'm assuming that's a key piece of how you can build the business case for this, is like, you need to know how much time each activity is happening and where those bottlenecks end up happening. They might know the bottleneck, but how do you quantify it to actually translate into a business case?
Yeah, exactly. Like without knowing the cycle times of your current setup, without knowing like that full envelope of what's what, then it is very hard to justify a lot of that. And that's a lot of times where we'll go is like, okay, well, let's look at where those bottlenecks are in the system. What are the pains? And it may not be the one that you attack first, because that might be the big capital spend, but we slowly can get you there, right? And with any process too, part of it, we didn't get too much into this, but you got to look at the in feed and the out feed of that, to see like, because like you said, great, I can get you from 300 to 500, but the rest of your facility can't handle it anyway. So what, like, that's why we don't think you should do that. Like you're going to have a machine that's overkill for what you want to do. So, like it's really understanding like that, like you said, the bottlenecks, and understanding what you have going on. And is that consistent? Or are you just doing that now because of, a lack of labor, or you're only running 2 shifts and now you can run 3, so there's always ways to look at of how you're doing your operation.
Right. And then you end up with capacity and then the opportunity. And that's what makes it exciting. It seems also that it's not a standard cookie cutter thing. It seems like there is, each business has its own nuances, and like you say, knowing those processes from end to end are really critical, because that allows you to be where you can, your expertise and creativity can really come into solving what they thought was the issue, maybe something else that you end up learning through working with them on.
That's it. And every facility, you have one over here and one across the street doing the same thing, but they just operate a bit differently. Right. So even our OEM piece of equipment, right? It's not a cookie cutter. It's not a Model 1, a Model 2, a Model 3, and you just put it in. Like you have to do around their footprints. They may have a column here. They may have different spacing on something. They may have different throughputs, but it's the same process. So you're still tailoring it to somebody's facility, and especially the custom stuff. The custom stuff is definitely, we have to really look at, what you're currently doing. And how do we optimize that based on what you did? Yes, we can maybe modify it based on something else we did, but it's still a pretty unique situation on what they're up against.
Right. So it sounds. I know we could continue and go into deeper dives on certain things and stuff, but I think that's a lot to digest right there. Is there, if there's something else you wanted to kind of share right now, is there, maybe from a trends or any pearls of wisdom to kind of get someone off the seat and make that call? What would you like to say?
No, I think, it goes back almost to what we said. Like there's no fear, because there's even if you don't understand it, there's tons of companies out there, including ourselves, that can come out and help with that. Like I say, and we're not trying to just say you have to do all of this stuff, just by potentially going out and helping them with bottlenecks, and that may just change something, and maybe, they're setting themselves up for automation 3 years down the line. So we are noticing there's a lot more, say requesting going on. Yes, the hesitancy is still there, but at least, I'll say, in a way, a lot of people are getting their eyes opened a little bit more. They're realizing the power of it, and they're starting to realize that there's so many advantages, and there's so many different levels. Like you said, there, especially biting off small chunks in that, there's a bunch of different ways that you can implement the same thing. And it's really just like no fear. We can come out, we can help out, and no harm, no foul. If we find that there's nothing to do there, right? And that's where I think most places would be like that. That if it doesn't make sense, we won't. Don't force it on you. But we'll let you know what's what, and we try to help out wherever we can. So,
well,
but it is good. The trends are definitely going the right way. I think as far as a lot more involvement, and a lot more people just going like, "Hey guys, what can we do?" And that's where it starts. That's really the question where it starts, and we have no problems helping them out.
Well, that's excellent. And I know when there was a report out a while back there during the pandemic when things were really shut down and slowing down, and one of the fastest growing businesses were sales of robotics. I think it's happening around the world. So I think companies should just have another relook and have that conversation with you. So I think this is probably a good time to cut it. And it's been a real pleasure having you on, Ryan. We'll certainly have to have you on again for another discussion on this interesting topic.
Well, thank you very much. I'd love to come back.
Excellent. Okay, take care.
Bye, Ryan.
That's it for this episode. I'd like to thank Ryan Catton from Ionic Mechatronics for being on the show, and also thank Brian Bolin, our producer, for doing the 6 and 60. Follow us on Twitter at Mining Suppliers and LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure you get every episode of The Dig that's coming up. So until next time, I'm Ryan McEachern. Take care and stay safe.